Doris Kearns Goodwin, best-selling author, 5 decades now studying America's presidents and writing multiple books about them. Those books include Team of Rivals, Lyndon Johnson and the American Dream, and The Bully Pulpit. Her new book is The Leadership Journey, How 4 Kids Became President, and it's her first book for young readers. It highlights the early lives of Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lyndon B. Johnson. And Doris Goodwin joins us now. Doris, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
I love this book. I love everything about it. I love the drawings. I love the detail. I love the simplicity of the writing and the sort of the big picture of it. Where did this idea come from to write something for younger readers?
Well, I think it really started because I love history so much, and it makes me heartbroken to see how history is being diminished all over the country. So I figured that if I could figure out how I loved history, I mean, I started loving it when my father taught me that mysterious art of keeping score while listening to baseball games. So I could record for him the history of the Brooklyn Dodger game. But I also had a teacher in high school who was magic, and she taught history through biography, and you could feel that you cared about the people. And you had stories rather than just facts and figures. And so I wanted to bring it to young people when I could start with the guys that I've studied. I've lived with them.
You call them
Johnson,
my guys.
Yeah.
My guys. Franklin, Eleanor, no,
Yeah,
I wish it were
Eleanor.
Franklin, Teddy Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
If I started when they were young, when they make mistakes, when they're uncertain, when they're evolving, you could watch them grow, and you could imagine that they're not just icons anymore. They're not on the currency yet. They're just people, and I thought that's the way to start, making them love history.
Yeah.
They were all such unlikely, what we would deem as being unlikely to have moved along the path of life that they did. What was it the 4 of them had in common that you wanted to relay to young readers?
You know, I thought about that. I kept thinking, is there a master key to their leadership? They all came from such different backgrounds. They had different temperaments. But they shared eventually a series of qualities, which I think we want in our kids. We want in everybody that's going to be a leader anywhere. They had humility, which meant they could acknowledge errors and learn from their mistakes, because then that's the only way you grow. They had empathy, where they could feel what other people were feeling. They had resilience. All of them went through terrible times, and they were somehow able to get larger as a result. Ernest Hemingway once said, everyone's broken by life, but afterwards some are strong in the broken places. They all were able somehow to deal with victory with humility and with loss with grace. And most importantly, they developed an ambition eventually that was larger than just for themselves. You all start out that way, but then it's for the team maybe, or for your school, or for your country if you eventually become president, as these characters did.
In the recent months, the presidential election has just become wilder and wilder, to say the least. What are the parallels that you have found in history when it comes to comparing the times we are living in now and what you have seen in the past?
Oh, it's such an important question, because I think especially young people feel they're living in such a difficult time, and it's really an anxious time for them. And that's why history comes to the rescue. We've lived in such hard times before, rougher than this. Think what it was like in the early days of the Civil War, the early days of the Great Depression, the early days of World War II, when it was not at all clear that the Allies were going to win the war. The people living through those hard times before, they didn't know how it would end. We know now, looking back, okay, the Union won the Civil War. Okay, the Allies won World War II.
That's why it's important to know history.
And that's why it's so important, because it gives you solace from knowing we've been through tough times and we've emerged with greater strength. It gives you lessons you can learn from why these leaders worked, why the citizens worked. And otherwise, you're just on your own. And I think that's one reason why. I think there's some study I saw recently that like 8 out of 10 kids are not competent in history.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's
And
awful.
history can serve as a companion.
Oh, that's a great word. I'm going to use that from now on.
Go right ahead.
History is a companion.
That's free.
Yeah, no, it really is. But, you know, one of the differences, I think, in our day and age versus some of these other difficult periods that these presidents oversaw is trust in our institutions, right? The solution to the problem used to be a government program. Now people look askance at whatever the White House or the administration is offering. How do we regain trust in our institutions?
You know, I think we just have to realize that we are the government. You know, somehow we think of the government as something foreign from us. But if you get involved, if you're young, in your local government, in your town hall, and then you get involved in the state, and then you realize that it's up to us as citizens to make things happen. You know, Lincoln was called a liberator, and people said, don't call me that, he said. I was the anti-slavery movement and the Union soldiers that did it all. It was the civil rights movement that made what Lyndon Johnson did with civil rights possible. So citizens have to feel that they have to be active, and if they're active, we are government. It's us.
Yeah. You know, I think it was Bill Clinton who, at least as I first heard it, said that in the long scope of history, presidents get one sentence, right? Lincoln was the liberator. FDR won World War II, saved the world. What's Joe Biden's one sentence?
I think that he was able to be a bipartisan leader and was able to make certain things happen and make people believe in part of government again.
What about Trump's?
That's to be determined. I think it takes a long time for us to figure out what happens, but I think the hardest thing will be that the peaceful transition of power happened for every single president except for President Trump. And I think that's going to be a hard thing for history to not look at.
Yeah, people will be thinking about that when they stand in front of the oil painting of the National Gallery. Doris Kearns Goodwin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The Leadership Journey goes on sale Tuesday, September 10th. You can pre-order now.